you. Thank you. I believe that between Pedro Pablo Ramos, who was for 26 years deprived of his freedom, Carmelo Diaz Fernandez, 16, and the other 20, and their only crime was to have created an independent free trade movement. And I would like to propose now that we perhaps have questions and answers period, brief debate. If you want to tell of your own experience in your countries, there are many unions here who have expressed their solidarity towards you. And there are 2 union members here who cannot reveal anything when we publish all this. But Jose Leon can speak as much as he wants. But we have a program for promoting and developing the union movement in Cuba. We have been doing this during the past 8 years, and we have had the very good support of the Foundation for Democracy. And if we can, we should express our sincere thanks for their solidarity and for their assistance. But we have a special project for sending equipment to Cuba so that we can improve communications among those free unions in Cuba, and to also hold seminars to train those persons like Carmelo, Roberto de Miranda, Pedro Pablo, who was never able to attend a seminar in Cuba. Yes, he was in jail, but when the project began, they became the beneficiaries, and we have been trying with those programs to help the independent union movement of Cuba, assisting the individual unionists and individual journalists, because they are the ones that can reach the media, and they can learn of the international conventions that assist them. When we began these talks, Mr. Roberto Rodriguez, who was one of the persons who most has helped the Cuban movement, who is, I wanted to take off my hat to him because of what happened in the Cuban jails. When a short time ago we spoke of those violations, and the Cuban union members speak of the Article 87 of collective bargaining, and I was a union member in Cuba. I was one of the officers of the Communist Party, and I never had access to the international conventions. That's why these courses are very important, to continue having a program to develop and to serve as a basis for the future development of democratic unionism. I don't want to go further in depth on the subject because we're going to have a panel tomorrow with some union members who are in Spain, are aware many, such as the case of Miguelito Albama and many others who are going to be participating in a teleconference and going to be working with the independent union members such as Irán Hernández Cabillo, who is a union leader, who are present, substituted our brother Carmelo in the independent workers of Cuba, and Hernández Carrillo was in jail and suffered twice because he was young, because he was black, and because he was determined to be a unionist. His mother, his grandmother, and all his family suffered. And Iran made the decision that he was not going to leave Cuba. He took this decision very courageously, and he was telling me today of how interesting he still felt, and he was going to transmit to President Carter, and I suspect that he will do so, that as very simple people who express everything they feel, he is going to describe what is happening to the Cuban workers. So maybe tomorrow we will have another opportunity, and we hope that we can have this teleconference with Ivan, and perhaps we might also be able to speak with President Carter, who was visiting with them today. No microphone. Estoy con el Instituto de Albert Shanker y quería que supieran que Karen está aquí, representa al Sindicato de Trabajadores de la Educación, y estoy segura que les va a relatar su historia, y quiero que sepan que está muy interesada en el futuro de los trabajadores de la educación en Cuba. Me parece que hay una estrategia, aunque no conozco mucho de política sindical, que Cuba quiere exilar a todos aquellos que quieren manifestarse como sindicalistas independientes. Me pregunto si eso es verdad. Y en segundo lugar, si esto es así, más gente se va a manifestar y se va a poner de pie, o si se guardarán silencio y en realidad se ocultarán en lugar de manifestarse, para no tener que ser exilados o ser echados del país.
Bueno, evidentemente que el régimen está haciendo una...
Evidently, the government is doing an ideological cleansing. Not only is it cleaning out its union members, but anyone who has been in opposition of the Cuban government. In Spain, there are still some 35 or so brothers who were librarians, who worked with the civilian movement and who were activists, as was Brother Varela. We believe that yes, there are going to be more who rise up and speak, because throughout the years we have seen this historical wave of exilees, many of those who were the founders of the union, of the free union movement, because this began beginning of the 90s. In 91, we created the first union, and many of those brothers and sisters had to go into exile, as the case of Manrique Sueta, Mangarino Martinez Guillén, and so many others. This practice has been followed by the government for many years in sending us into exile. It is now a common policy. But many others are going to rise because there are many more activists. And now, as Carmelo well said, 500,000 workers will be out of work. They are already expressing their concern and are adding their names to the independent movement. And they have come to our union so that they can organize their defense. And many are receiving through our lawyers, because we have labor lawyers who are assisting them. These lawyers cannot work within Cuba as lawyers, but they give them the tools, give these workers the tools so that they can appear before the courts and defend themselves. Fidel has had to stop this wave of firing because he is now seeing with grave concern what the people are doing, and that they are claiming their rights and complaining. That is very important. What Brito said is important. We too tried to do it in the past, but we had very few resources. But we would give instructions to our delegations, and that was one of our greatest objectives. This is one of the things we must maintain. In Europe, I saw many union members, and I always asked them for assistance for Cuba. That is Cuba. What we need in Cuba is precisely that. Cuba lacks knowledge of this, as Mr. Brito said. Brito was a member of the union movement, and I had to read the communist books and read what it said about the unions. In the 80s, I did not know what the unions did. We only knew the Cuban communists. Everybody else was a devil created by capitalism. And I believe that knowledge is becoming more widely disseminated, and they are protesting, they are expressing themselves. Cuba has always vied for freedom. Many more have not been able to leave because they couldn't. But Cubans want freedom, and the Cuban citizen wants freedom. And sooner or later, they will appear. They will rise. Aníbal Cabrera. I'm from the CTV, the Confederation of Venezuelan Workers, and I'm also a member of the International Group for Corporate Social Responsibility in Cuba. I want to thank you all. I will attend a meeting in Lima, Peru, and this is very important because Carlos Ortega was condemned for having called for a strike among the petroleum workers. He was condemned as a traitor. He spent 2 years in jail, and today he is in exile. He asked for a very urgent meeting this weekend, and he asked me to go to Lima and talk to him. I have a question for the three of you, because I work with this project directed by Pepe Collado of the International Group for Corporate Social Responsibility. In the case of the teachers, whatever you know, what type of very specific wishes are manifested by their movement, and how could we assist them in mobilizing these workers so that they could achieve this end? Information is power. When you send us information, computers, cellular phones, because our people are lacking information. These training courses we've had have served to inform the people. And every day this information is dispersed more and more. In the libraries, we give people books, but we still lack a great deal of support from you. I hope the Venezuelan community here would see how important it is to set Cuba free. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Villanes. I come from El Salvador, and I work with a federation, a fraternity that is not very well known in the energy or power industry. We do help. We did help the FML to reach the government, and now the government is not assisting the people. How was the relationship between these parties of the left with the independent unions in Cuba? Was there some rapprochement or not? Because today the modern front won thanks to the coalition that we formed. But at this time, we are now seeing that the structure that they thought they would implement was to give power to organizations that represented the organized labor movement. I wanted to ask you, therefore, were they did they isolate you, or did they assist you? Can the brothers in Cuba now leave the country and go and obtain training abroad, or are they forbidden to do so? What we have lacked is that support from the so-called democratic social movement, because there is a social movement, so-called. They said that they would support us when they took so many prisoners in 2003. There were some social democrats, but evidently they always align themselves with the dictator. This happens the world over. There are very few cases. Ernesto Diaz also knows about this. He went this road. And in the union movement, most of the unions, very few of them have. Tom Donahue's Committee for Free Trade Union, some of the unions, like the Dutch unions, have assisted us a little bit, but there is very little support. If we are in the opposition in Cuba, we among those who participate in the opposition don't know very much support. That's more difficult. I was able to leave in '98, and I was always invited among the delegations from the ICFTU in Cuba. I was invited to go to certain events, but they did not allow me to leave and attend those. In '97, I was invited to go to Caracas, and the Cuban government denied me. And then I went to a Congress of CLAC in Mexico. But that was thanks to the visit of the Pope in Cuba. I did everything so that I could go to Mexico, and they authorized me to go to Venezuela, which they had rejected. So I went to Venezuela and stayed there 3 days, and managed to have our organization recognized. Yes, they did put me in jail simply because I wanted to create a labor congress in Cuba. They said, well, don't do this, don't hold such a large meeting. We were 35 members, and even so, I was put in jail for 4 months. And when I was a prisoner, I was made a world member of the International Union Commission. We were there when FMT and the ICFTU were meeting. So we have been recognized on a worldwide basis. But that is against the will of the regime. Because after that year, I was never able to leave Cuba again to attend any other Congress. They condemned him for 25 years in jail. But in the year 2000, they imprisoned me simply because a Polish union leader went to Cuba. We met in Ciudad del Rio, and I wanted to show solidarity with Lech Walesa and the Polish movement, labor movement. But when we spoke of the meeting in Havana, my friends could not believe that I was still at home and not in jail. But they did that later. I held that meeting with that Polish officer in May, but in August I was again in jail. We would like very much to do this. We have within the Dominican Republic a center for training our union leaders, but it has been impossible for us to do that. We don't have those freedoms. I know that it's very difficult for you to understand our situation, but in Cuba there is hardly any freedom for union leaders at all. I would like to thank you all for this invitation to to share with you this moment in time, which I feel is almost a historical one for the Union movement of Cuba, because I believe that as of today, this committee is going to have greater strength and will have our full support and solidarity to continue this fight, not only with the independent Cuban movement, but also we shall become free. I want to thank Carmelo Diaz and Carmelo and Mr. Alvarez, whom I am united to because of this feeling of solidarity and for everything that they have done with such great merit, and because I know what it is to have been fighting from jail, because I received more than 25 years of deprivation from my rights. But from my cell, I defended the rights of all Cubans to have freedom. And I wanted to give a special recognition to Lourdes Kisler. Lourdes, whom I have known for more than 20 years, and with whom I have shared so many times of solidarity. I feel that Lourdes is also a great Cuban lady, at least in her heart. And also Jack Otero and Pepe Collado, and the many more people who throughout all of these years have never given up. On a day like today, I miss many, many people who have shown solidarity towards us. I also, as President Keller, who so strongly defended the free trade union movement of Cuba. I also miss Pedro Ramirez, the president of the CTV of Venezuela, and Acerta Mirabal, a great friend, a great fighter. And I also miss Marion Szeleski from Poland, who gave us so much support and cooperation. The senator that Pablo was speaking, Senator Romaninsky, who was always with open hearts hoping to meet with the Cubans. I feel that this meeting has been very important. I'm so glad that Ms. Kisler invited me. And to you I say that all of my strength and my time and my available time, you can count on me to continue this fight for the rights of the Cuban workers. To our sister Joel, whom I met just after he arrived from Cuba in Washington. And finally, I hope that this meeting today will mean for everybody a commitment to continue fighting for the trade union freedom. And I also wanted to give thanks to so many others who have come in movement of solidarity, because they also need freedom. And we want this solidarity that is being felt here today continue forever, because the people of Cuba are in agony, and the people of Cuba do truly merit and deserve their freedom. As we say in Colombia, a union leader who doesn't speak cannot be a leader. A union leader. First of all, and I have always defended this principle in Europe and in the Americas. I have always told my friends, let us I have always said to them that solidarity with the people and the workers of Cuba, we must manifest it And that is what Joel Brito did when he created the International Group for Corporate Social Responsibility in Cuba, in the city of Miami. And he began to internationalize this group with Aníbal Cabrera and with myself. When Joel Brito said that I was burned up, I don't care what the government of Cuba says. Throughout the Americas, I continue to defend and continue to speak in Brazil, in Argentina, in Chile, in Costa Rica, in Italy, and wherever I go. Throughout these 49 countries, I continue to defend the Cuban workers and those of you who are here. But there's something else. Not only has it stopped being free there, but we also had a great coup when we hit upon the government of Cuba, and we were able to get out 3 workers who had been enslaved and who went to my country. And they are here thanks to our group, and among them is someone who is here who always calls me Papa Noel. To be a union member is to have it in one's blood. I know how these brothers lacked freedom and how much they wanted it. The South Americans who live in the Caribbean and throughout Central America, and the Cubans who lacked freedom went to Cartagena, and they went to persecute them and to find them, but we managed to hide them and to send them elsewhere. This was very difficult to achieve. As I told Joel, we finally managed to bring them to this country. And the U.S. government gave someone a visa so that they could stay here forever, because they had been persecuted, and thanks to 2 or 3 officers in the American embassy where we had, with whom we had a good relationship. But as we say in South America, there cannot be 100 years or anyone who can survive them. There is no ill that survives 100 years. But technology is finally reaching those people. Every one of us has always taken something to improve the health or the well-being. We now have better communications with all of those workers who created an independent Cuban labor movement. So this movement is now taking flight, and thanks to the ladies in white and our sisters in that movement that has been known throughout the world. There were only 10 or 11 or 12, and now we see more than 100, 200 ladies in white. And the government is hitting them and pushing them and shoving them, but we will continue with this cause until we attain their freedom. And I will go one day to see Cuba free. Since 1959, I have never believed in visiting Fidel. But I didn't believe in the government of Vélez because he mistreated the workers. We were Joel says that I travel in a car that is totally protected, but we continue to work for the union. But I have children, I have a family. In my second marriage, I have a very young girl who was only 8 years old. But I want to say that you can continue to count on the solidarity of our oil and petroleum workers, because we will continue to fight for the freedom of all the Cuban workers. Thank you. Here we have one of the ladies in white. I'm Soledad Rivas, is a wife of Roberto de Miranda, who was condemned 20 years. One of the ladies in white. I can tell you that in Cuba, the ladies in white have suffered much since 2003, that they took our family members away. Not only the prisoners suffered, also the families, because we were persecuted, we were followed, so that we would stop fighting for our prisoners. But we, the ladies in white, will continue to fight, because even though I am here, my heart is always in Cuba. I'm never going to forget those women who are still in Cuba, who are still being affected by the Cuban authorities. They're being punished. You have to be in Cuba to know how painful it is for the ladies in white. They're also punishing their children, their mothers, their relatives. We've had 2 people dead among our political prisoners, Asilo Zapata, our brother Zapata, and brother Tamayo. But the ladies in white will not stop. We continue to suffer, but they're never going to put us down. The ladies in white have always said, my principles are not going to be changed, and our dignity has no price. We will continue to be our ladies in white while there is even 1 prisoner. There are still more than 200 prisoners left, and all of their families are reaching out to the ladies in white. We have the honor of receiving those mothers who had been silent previously. They were silent. They could not come to defend their families, but they came to the Iglesia Santa Rita, to the Santa Rita Church, and reported this, so they've lost their fear. And these women are also now fighting for their relatives and their family members. And I hope they listen to me in Cuba. And I'm going to tell all the mothers and all the families of all of those political prisoners to continue working with the ladies in white, because someday these poor prisoners are going to know how valuable the work of the ladies in white has been, because the ladies in white are going to continue to fight until Cuba is free. And I believe, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, that that day is soon coming. Our people will soon be free. Viva, long live Cuba Libre, long live the ladies in white, long live human rights, and long live all these union members who have really touched me. We must continue to fight for our country. Thank you very much. Thank you so very much. I would like to ask all of you who are here today to honor with a minute of silence the memory of one of the bricklayers who was so vilely assassinated when he was denied medical assistance after his hunger strike. Orlando Zapata Tamayo, who died very recently, and who was one of the small fires who awakened the whole world, aside from the ladies in white, because Zapata Tamayo was immolated, and the ladies in white were frightened into action. But all of those actions brought the world together when they found out what was happening. The government of Cuba has forgotten that. Many people have forgotten that. But we, the union leaders, cannot forget that brave man who lost his life in order to defend the same principle. So please, one moment of silence. Thank you. And now, I wanted to clarify something. The co-sponsors of this conference are Committee for Free Trade Unionism and the International Group for Corporate Social Responsibility in Cuba have been focusing the attention on this conference, specifically on Cuba, because it is a very specific project of ours when we consider the horrible tragedy that has affected the Cuban people for so many years. But we also want to set quite clearly that our mission and our full agenda is really for the whole world, wherever free and democratic unions are being affected. Our group and our committee will always be present. We are very concerned about what's happening in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Libya, in other parts of Africa, in Venezuela, and in other countries of the world, especially here in our own hemisphere. Naturally, at our conference today and tomorrow, we will be focusing on the Cuban matters. But we wanted to take this opportunity to allow a person from El Salvador who has come from El Salvador to tell us of their movement, because they too are now suffering at this time and are in danger of losing their freedom. Our friend Nestabi said that after 30 years of civilian struggle, in El Salvador there was finally an election and a coalition front. And in order to win the elections, the president brought about this coalition And one of the things that he did is once he became president, he should have, of course, given them something. They asked for the labor department, and there's a representative of the FML who is in the ministry. I don't want to take away from his time, but we have been following quite closely this situation in El Salvador because we are now very concerned, because the construction workers had a model union member, our brother Vasquez. So I'm going to ask Brother Nesvalin to describe what has happened in his country, and I must say that we've prepared a resolution so that during this conference we can provide some support so that he can take this resolution to his country to show that we are fully cognizant of what's happening in El Salvador and that we support his movement. Brother Neftali. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you. The person who was going to provide you with this information is Brother Freddy Vasquez, who is the Secretary General of the Construction Workers Union. I am the Secretary General of the Energy or the Power Workers Union in the southern part of El Salvador. I don't know what happened to Freddy Vasquez, but he has very serious problems. Perhaps I can give you a little bit of background information on this. During all of this time in El Salvador, their government has been from the right. And we were very chastised at all times from the right. And we were hoping that with the movement of the front movement that we would have better luck, so that we the workers supported the alternative government. In other words, we the power workers and the unit fraternity for the representation of the unions, we never agreed in supporting any one political party. We have always agreed that unions must use the parties as a vehicle to attain their rights. But what has happened is the following. When we supported this alternative government, the FML made an alliance with the a journalist who became the president, Mr. Funes. So the first thing he did was to find a sponsor for winning his cup. And he made an arrangement with somebody who loaned him $3 million. So he became president. And in each one of the ministries, and those ministries that are the biggest, largest power, he took the Minister of Education, the Ministry of the Government, and the Ministry of Labor, which are the most powerful ones. When this happened, they began to watch all the organizations who were never allied to the FML nor any other party. So, as the construction workers, which was one of the strongest unions in our country, because there's all of the trades there that are organized within. All of the construction workers are workers who are not full-time workers. They're contractors or subcontractors. And there are sometimes that they are unemployed, and that is when the FML came to say, this is the organization that represents you. I will read you this document on the lack of human rights. During the assembly of the 2nd day of January, certain activists, not members of our union, and with the members of the party controlling them, the FML intended by force to penetrate this assembly and caused a great commotion. These were not members affiliated to the SUR. And on the 1st of February, the minister refused the credentials and declared, among other things, that the activists who were not members of the SUC had been denied their rights. How much time do I have to read the resolution? We can do it later. I'd better just give you the background, because it is very long. But what I wanted to really tell you is that FML, through the words of the minister, the lady who's the Minister of Labor, takes away the credentials of the unions and gives the credentials to another union, to the one that was a parallel organization. So Freddy Vasquez, of course, goes to the courts but the courts give him the right or fails in his favor. But the government set up an organization called the Economic and Social Council, and so that the unions can be represented there, they oblige us of creating a structure which is MUSIGE, Movimiento de Unidad Sindical y Gremial del Trabajador, movement of the unions and the labor organizations. But when we wanted to become a part of the council, it did not validate our credentials. What happens is that the FML wants to have only those unions who are aligned with them. And in the case of the construction workers, I have the documents here. And if I'd known that there was a possibility of bringing them to you, I would have done so. We told the ministry to investigate those people who were not of our union. We had them investigated because of exchange of influence. But the lady minister, who knows most of the union members, the union authorities, the inspectors did not go to provide the certification. They don't even want to certify us. In the power industry, we have many who have been fired when we say, give us a certification that this worker was in the union. But the minister doesn't want to accept that certification. So, all of those organizations who are not aligned to the that front, they set them aside. Like I said, I am not a member of the right or the left. The only thing we want is to have free trade unions in El Salvador. And that's why they've made a sign of the cross. They've crossed us out. We were about to cut off their lights because we see that it doesn't resolve the problems of the workers. And when we sent a communique asking for a change in the Minister of Labor, then they quickly came to say that it was the best minister that the government had ever had. I thank you for the time you've given you to tell you that in the name of the construction workers, and in the name of the power workers unions, of the energy workers union, and if there's anyone who can give us a little hand and can support us in our denunciation, I went to the human rights organization, and they didn't want to listen to me. When you heard that the ILO feels certain lack of sensitivity, we feel the same. Well, I went and went to the young lady who was at the desk there. But I had great difficulty. It's a great honor to have seen you, and thank you for listening to me. I'm going to try to summarize the resolution. It says that the construction workers had an election at the General Assembly, and they elected their leaders. And the government, through the Minister of Work, refused to recognize those leaders and didn't want to give them their charter. So that the union went to the Supreme Court, and they filed a lawsuit, and the court gave a judgment in the favor of the union and told them that they could sue the ministry for damages. But the ministry not only did not accept, but they sent certain inspectors with false documentation, and followed by a police escort, they invaded the union and they took over the union. So that it's a horrible violation of the human rights and their union rights. Imagine that we have to prepare a resolution there, draft a resolution, to provide them with full support, and so that our brother from El Salvador can take it back home with him. The resolution would say that we declare our total solidarity with the members and the leaders who were legally elected, and secondly, to denounce the activities of the Labor Ministry because they are attempting to destroy union freedom, and to have the governor initiate an investigation. And we would like to demand that the union leadership that we also add that we defend all free trade unions. And the Secretary of State should ask the embassy in El Salvador to present a formal report detailing the violation of union rights on the part of the government, and for the United States to condemn this and to deny any assistance to the development of El Salvador until the president of El Salvador takes into account these violations, to send this resolution also to the ILO, to SIT, and to the court in Brussels, so that, and here in Miami, etc. So this is the resolution which we would like to adopt and that we put before you for your consideration. So that all of those of you who are present, would you please give us your okay? Yes, in the resolution, to name the government of the United States, just as we speak of the Department of State, also to speak of the Department of Labor, because there is a strong cooperation, and that the Secretary of Labor has visited many a times there. You are quite right, because the Labor Secretary, this unfortunately happened when we were not prepared to do so with all because Mr. Obama was accompanied by Hilda Solis, who is our Labor Department, and I will personally go to visit her. You're quite right. And if this amendment is accepted, we adopt this resolution. So we will draft this, and Mr. Collado would like to say a few words. But before that, I want to invite all of you to come to a dinner which will be sponsored by all of us in a small Cuban restaurant that's at 4612 Lejeune Road, quite close to here. Thank you very much. And all of those who need transportation, we have enough room in our cars, so come with us so that you won't get lost again. And I want to thank especially all of those of you who were here, Carmelo, Roberto, and Pedro Paulo, for having taken their time to explain what is happening in Cuba today. And especially to recognize our local leaders and my older brother, Jerry Becerra, who is the Cuban American who has the highest level in he's in the Longshoremen's Association, and Andres Soria, who is a local president, for their time, and to my sister who speaks Spanish, even though she says only a little, who is the president of the Teachers Union, who are now involved in a great fight against the governor and the legislature and the school system and the county, because they wanted to take away all of the benefits that they have attained throughout the years. And the only way to balance the budget is by cutting. Karen, thank you very much. I know you're very busy, but we thank you for honoring us with your presence here. Thank you. And the National Union, Teachers Union, and the Longshoremen have been those unions that for many, many years have supported the position of the unionists in Cuba. And to give you a very brief description, the independent labor movement is, we owe a great deal to all of those who worked so hard in the 80s when he mentioned Jack Otero and Lourdes and a group of union leaders who formed the Committee of Free Cuba, the Free Cuba Committee. And that's when we began to work with the Cuban workers. We worked on getting Ernesto Diaz and Chavez de Armas, who's now deceased, and so many people who have worked, the first person who put us in touch with the union members of Cuba and Mr. Gutierrez in the port of Havana, where we locally began to assist them. And the movement has grown. When Joel came into exile, we must recognize him, Aníbal, and the lady who runs the office, Aníbal in Washington, who is the man who resolves many problems. We have a small group, but we managed to incorporate Mr. Leon, and we hope that many of you who are attending this conference today will also become members of our group. I hope we will work in unity with the free labor movement of Chile, of Cuba, in order to help them in their efforts. And no person who is a political prisoner or a member of a union can participate in the bonanza offered by the Cuban government. We have a moral commitment to them. We will continue their fight. You see that the movement is growing and will continue to grow. And we're also looking forward to when Cuba becomes a democracy, as to what role they will have in free Cuba. And we want to thank Casa Bacardi for having us given this beautiful room for our meeting. And tomorrow we will have a more formal meeting, and we hope that you and many more will be attending. Two small presentations. First, Mr. Mason from the Cement Workers Union. You're very kind. No se le oye, disculpen. Estoy aquí representando a la sección de educación del Sindicato de los Trabajadores del Cemento. I did not want to lose this opportunity, and I wanted to thank the organizers for their invitation, and on a personal basis, and the name of my organization, the Foundation for Democracy. I wanted to thank you for your work and for all you do to attain free and democratic unions, and to give you a message of solidarity, to tell you that Annette has always worked in favor of the Cuban free labor movement, that we have received with open arms any and all news and any way in which we can assist the Cubans in their movement. And this is a decision that was expressed by our president, Mr. Carl Gershman, and all of us, the officers of that organization. And that is something that we will continue to do. I thank you for all of your presentations, and I'm hoping to be here tomorrow, and I'm anxious to hear what you have to say. And for all of those who are going to drive to Havana, Harry, the address is 4612 South Lejeune Road in Coral Gables, which is very close by. Those who need transportation please come here to see us, and we will be happy